Okay, so I thought I'd go live here. God damn it! Can I get more? Can I get more? Can I get more? Whoop, whoop. Apparently I can't get both. Damn it all to hell. Ugh. I guess the exposure is just it. Well, anyway, here I am live. Really, I should have done this before the broadcast. In Washington Square Park. It's a beautiful. I mean, everybody's making jokes about how it's summer, skipped springtime, went straight to summer. I'm just going to reiterate their jokes. I just did a set at the Greenwich Village Comedy Club. I did some experimental stand-up comedy. I bombed, and I bombed quietly. I'm working on trying to be quieter on stage. And a comedian said an interesting thing. He said getting people to listen is 3/4 of the battle. And, one thing about being loud on stage. Can you hear me, or do you hear the Hare Krishnas? I was worried the sound is going to be completely destroyed by Hare Krishna drumming. I'm right. I mean, the Hare Krishnas are right here. That's them right there. And, so, being loud or being boisterous, for one reason, that's just where my energy wants to go, but that is one way of getting the audience's attention. To me, it's a way of ambushing, letting the energy flag in the room, right? I mean, especially with the open mic, it's like, it's my responsibility to kind of like bolster the energy, keep the energy high for everybody. I have to, I'm the host, I have to lead the thing. And so energetically, right, it helps to be high. And speaking of which, it's our 420 week coming up. We don't have a show, obviously, because 420 is on a Thursday. So it's sort of diametrically right in between the two open mics, 417 and 424. So we can't really do a 420. And I don't know, I think people are kind of tired of the 420 motif. But we're doing it anyway. We're having a 420 week. Starting April 17th. The whole week is 420. So come out Monday. We're going to be jamming. It's a jam band day. It's a 4-hour Grateful Dead concert, 5-hour Grateful Dead concert. The open mic is a Grateful Dead concert, It's a whole journey. We go to drums, we go to space. People ask me, probably the most common question I get is, how do you do it every week? It's like, the Grateful Dead played, they were on tour playing multiple shows a week that were 4 hours long, or, any number of bands that play 4-hour-long sets. And so that's kind of the way I look at it. It's just a big jam. Everybody gets to play a solo in the big orchestra. So I tried some experiment. Well, I've got this show next Wednesday, so I'm kind of preparing. And it's always good to get experience on stage. I mean, these comedy open mics are all over the place, just like sensibility-wise. They're not different than poetry open mics, I guess, in that sense. It's like they are kind of their own individual islands of sensibility and people and the things they like and the things they don't like and the aesthetics, if you will. And so with poetry, I like to go everywhere. It's a little bit less of a confrontational space, to be honest, and a little bit more of a just like let everybody do their thing space. Whereas like comedy, you get a lot of different styles. People have very different ideas about what's appropriate, what's inappropriate. Then they'll come at you. They will come at you if they feel threatened by you, if they smell fear, if they smell blood. They'll insult you. They'll make fun of you. They want to run you out of there because they don't want competition. If you're whack, it's like you got to get the fuck out. There's too much money. There's spots. There's a race to the top. I mean, it's just hyper intensified. It feels like in comedy, maybe. or capitalized or something. So I've been watching this show. This is what I meant to talk about on stage. I mean, the problem is you only get 5 minutes. So I mean, my time would already be up. Hey, thanks, everybody. That was the whole set. So, I kind of need more time. But this is what I was going to talk about. My goal at the open mic, for one thing, I'm just preparing for this show next Wednesday that I have to do, that I want to do, that I'm super excited about at St. Mark's Comedy Club, the other side of comedy thing, which is like an avant-garde comedy show. So in that, I can be as weird as I want and not really worry about it. I probably should have gone and done an open mic at St. Mark's Comedy Club just to get used to the mic stand and shit, just so I don't break anything, but I don't actually get out and do stand-up comedy enough. Well, okay, so I'm watching the show Crashing, Pete Holmes, and he's like, one of the lines in the show is like, you got to do 6 to 8, TJ Miller. TJ Miller says you got to do 6 to 8 sets a week, and he's kind of he's joking. He's like, I don't even go camping unless I'm going to get material about camping. I mean, that's obviously like that kind of psychotic 10,000 hours approach to stand-up comedy. I mean, that's what when I go to these open mics, it's like these guys are all testing their material. They're reading their jokes, or they're trying their jokes out. If it gets a laugh, it's like, okay, that works. I'll keep that in, or I'll work on that, or I'll flesh that out, or whatever. That's like the purpose. It's like going to the weight room or something. I suppose that's experimental in a way. You're experimenting. It's trial and error. But the audiences are all different. Like I said, the senses of humor are all different, and the sensibilities. I mean, now more than ever, in the wake of kind of like, the woke mob and whatnot. Yeah, I'm being facetious. I'm part of the woke mob. I'm part of the Antifa here with the Hare Krishnas in Washington Square. Overexposed. Blown out in Washington Square. Can I get a better exposure at all? Can you hear me, or are you just getting Hare Krishna drums? So I didn't know what the fuck I was gonna do. I know I wanted to get up. I had a few lines that I had prepared to just sort of get things rolling. And then, there were a few different things that I was like willing to talk about. All of which, it's remarkable when you go on stage, especially in these stand-up comedy open mics, just like how your thinking changes and how your mind changes and how you're not able to access things, and things that come very naturally when you're just walking down the street thinking to yourself go out the window. You can't think of anything. You're just grabbing for anything. You can't remember any of the lines. You can't remember any of them. But I like to go up with a few ideas. To me, I like to collage a lot of different things together. I like to talk a little bit about something. Hopefully it's funny. Maybe I'll do some wild character shit or some kind of one-liners. Today I did, God, those drums really loud. Today I do this thing called, because this is just what I realized I do. I do impressions of people nobody cares about. That's like a big part of my act. Because all the impressions I do are just like obsolete or archaic or just nobody cares. Nobody, like Charles Grodin, right? Nobody gives a fuck about, is that Christian? That Christian music's got to be super loud. I guess it's meditative. Yesterday it was such a calm vibe right here. So here we are live in the piano bar. This is John Cage speaking. So this is a 4:33 chance operation, so you just bear with us and embrace it all. Embrace all the ambient pot smoke and sunbathing and picnicking and illegal alcohol consumption. And please don't dox me. Do not swat me. Do not triangulate my position. Leave me be. I have to go to work in a little while. I'm trying this new thing where I do site-specific live streaming from different places throughout New York City, rather than just the air mattress in Kuzu Daddy's living room. We can really take the show on the road and go everywhere. Now that I can live stream from my phone, here we are in the nexus of funky energy just for the entire country, really. Washington Square Park, my favorite place, my living room. This is my studio. This is the navel. This is the vortex. We're in the vertices. The vortices the vortexture, the vortexual cyber vortex. And so yeah, so I did my impression of Batboy, my Batboy impression, which did not go. I mean, I didn't really bomb. I don't know. I don't know if people stopped listening, if that's what happened, or if I think part of it is like, when you get up on stage and you're talking, it is kind of like a group trance. You are talking, and comedy has this very specific rhythm that the comedians are actually working on. They're trying to keep things kind of slow and pace things out. And some of them are really good at it, to be honest. Like, they kind of lean into their jokes with the right emphasis. Like this guy, Eric Walsh, shout out to Eric Walsh, was at the open mic. Not to name names, I probably shouldn't name last names or anything on the live stream, but he's really good. His jokes are funny, and his timing, I guess is what you would say, really works to do that sort of thing. Like, as opposed to last time I came to McDougal Street and did Grizzly Pear, where I caused this kind of like rip in the fabric of the energy in the room for some reason, and everybody kind of came after me and made fun of me. I felt a little more comfortable in this room. It was, I would say, not to be appropriative or anything, but it was like a little bit more of a queer space. It was like, I think a lot of the comics talked about having partners of the same sex or things like that. So it felt kind of like, I felt the vibe. A lot of the comics were really good. They were smart. This one comic mentioned nominative determinism, which is an idea that like your name determines your destiny, which I think is kind of an interesting, the names of things can kind of spin them into existence, or it's a big part of success or branding, or just like the spell that you cast and unifying kind of the package or the emphasis of what you do and the message or whatever, make it kind of identifiable, make it recognizable, make it something that people will listen to or respond to. I mean, part of this for me, like everything, is I do go into these open mics. I was just trying to play jazz, okay? We're in this fucking basement on McDougal Street. I should have got into that. I didn't want to be like some historian or something, do something weird. But I've been watching that show Crashing, right? Which is this fucking HBO show. It's produced by Judd Apatow, and I suspect there's a lot of Judd Apatow in it. I was a little bit familiar with Pete Holmes before watching it. I'd seen a little bit of the Pete Holmes show that was on TBS. I remember him having some bit about Street Fighter 2, and that was around the time of Holy Smokes, and when I wrote that song Street Fighter 2. And so it was sort of like, okay, this comedian's talking about shit that, like, I can relate to, or, things from my childhood are starting to materialize kind of in the verbal culture or something in a way that maybe they hadn't been Super Nintendo Street Fighter 2. And so I kind of knew who he was. But this show, Crashing, it's kind of exactly like a Lives of the Poets show, because it's all about his life and kind of development as a fucking like stand-up comedian on McDougal Street. And he's religious. He was starting to be a youth pastor and things like that. So in that sense, it's like kind of coming from its own dimension. He like lives upstate, and he kind of drives into the city to do these open mics. But then it becomes all about the Grizzly Pear and this place, the Boston Comedy Club, which I guess was on 3rd Street. And just these comedy clubs, which are all up and down. They're still there. I mean, I bombed at the Grizzly Pear. I caused quite a stir there about a month ago or something when I did it. But the Grizzly Pear used to be this place called the Cafe Rienzi, which was like a beat poetry coffee house where Ted Jones and people kind of the street kind of beatnik Washington Square poets would come to, like, read their jazz, whatever, poetry, beat poetry, whatever it may be. The Ed Sanders Tales of Beatnik Glory kind of has good short story about those readings. The Gaslight, because that's what it was in the 50s or whatever. These what are now these comedy clubs or whatever, these shooting locations on Marvelous Miss Maisel are, which a lot of people, I think, tunes a lot of people into that culture. I haven't watched that show, but it's probably a similar kind of corollary where it's about these kind of spaces, and they're still there. And a lot of these comedians, I was watching that interview with Jon Stewart and Talib Kweli, and he was talking about working at the comedy, doing sets at the Comedy Cellar at the end of the night in the 80s or whatever. He worked at a place called Panchitos, which I think is now that Greek restaurant, Petrus Tavern or something. And it's weird how the comedy and the poetry history are kind of interlaced. And that was kind of one of the interesting things about the open mic. I don't know if I was hallucinating this or manifesting this or what, but like when Eric Walsh got up, he was one of the first comedians, and he started off by reading a poem. And it was like rhyming and stuff. And then a bunch of the other comedians referenced poetry and were reading poems and stuff too. It certainly wasn't because I was there, because I was kind of hiding and not really involved or anything. And I'd never been to this place before. I went to Greenwich Village Comedy Club, which is in this basement on McDougal. And so now I've done all the comedy places. I've done Comedy Shop, Grizzly Pear, Greenwich Village Comedy Club. I think that's all of them in that area, other than Comedy Cellar. But they all started reading poetry and stuff, so I thought that was kind of weird. And then I felt like, well, should I read poetry? Or because my intention was not, that's what I always do. If I got up and read poetry, it would just be like, okay, I'm just exercising this muscle that I already exercise a lot. I'm trying to work on this other thing, which is being on stage and not being totally crazy. Kind of trying to find some kind of enticing verbal form or something, a rhythm or flow, as a way of getting people to listen on stage and I don't know, supplanting. In a way, I'm sort of waging a war that I can't win, but what I'm doing, I am trying to sell as an experimental form of stand-up comedy. Because I'm on this Matthew Silver show called The Other Side of Comedy, which is like all these kind of avant-garde clown. I don't even know what the other people are going to do. So I'll probably do something completely crazy on that, but I also want to explore other levels on stage. And so that's why I was coming to this, to pay $5 to get up there. And you're paying them. You should be able to do whatever you want. I mean, there was a lot of people there. I was surprised. When I was walking by trying to get my, courage up beforehand to go in, I kind of looked down because it's downstairs, and it's like there were a lot of people in there, and they were laughing. So I was like, okay, this feels like a good vibe. The other one I had gone to was like a little more. There were less people there, and no one was really laughing. Everybody was super kind of like vicious and kind of waiting to pounce, which they did. Oh, now the Krishna music has kind of stopped a little bit. So I didn't want to read a poem, I was like, and I signed up really late. So even though the room was packed and people were laughing and stuff, I would say there were probably 25 people there, maybe at one point, 20, 25 people, probably 20. I think there were 22 people on the list when I signed up. And I went on at probably 4:30. By the time I went up, there were probably only 5 to 10 people there, something like that. So it wasn't like, I kind of like that. I like that space. That's one of the things that I think that show gets a lot. I think that's one of the intentions of this show, Crashing. It's trying to portray this life of a up-and-coming kind of struggling comic, trying to make it specifically in this kind of biosphere of McDougal Street. Even though you can kind of tell through the show it's kind of based on stuff that happened 20 years ago. Like Pete Holmes is a little bit old to be kind of doing what he's doing. and the culture has kind of moved on. The way that he's like, I mean, there's still people barking on McDougal Street and whatnot, but like that Boston Comedy Club closed in 2005, and I don't know, it just feels like a lot of the youthful energy. Like there's one scene where like they live in the East Village. This kind of young comedian like lives in the East Village, and it's like, I don't know. A lot of the young kind of energy is all out in Brooklyn, obviously, and it's not centered around McDougal Street. McDougal Street is this kind of like tourist, but it's people trying to get on at like Comedy Cellar, people trying to walk those kind of like paths and those kind of forms and things. It's not really like avant-garde comedy. It's not what they do at Young Ethel's. Although this open mic, I would say, was like a little bit closer to that, maybe. It was a little more friendly to like unusual stuff. Nobody was doing anything really weird. Everybody was like a comedian that was like working on their material, and everybody had like at least a few like pretty good jokes. Whereas like I was going up there with like almost no jokes at all, and I wasn't going to do impersonations, which is what I typically do, to kind of just like get wild and loud and like enthusiastic on stage. I was going to just try and be in like Lenny Bruce mode and just kind of like babble and play my trumpet or whatever until something funny happened, or to be honest, I don't even really give a fuck about being funny. I mean, that was one of the things that I feel like did work about the set, is I got my line out about I'd like to be a stand-up comedian, but I don't want to have to make people laugh. Like, I feel like that's kind of why can't you just get up on stage and talk? I don't understand what's so great about jokes. I don't think they're that great. They're okay. But I was more or less trying to do a talk piece. I felt like that was how I was trying to sell it. Everybody had mentioned poetry, so I got up. That was the first thing I said. I said, it's so weird everybody's talking about it. Am I manifesting this? Is this a DMT trip? Because I was just at the Bagley Wright lecture last night filming it. I live in poetry world. And, did I manifest this? Did I energetically pull this in, or was it just a coincidence? I guess it's just a coincidence. Or does this always happen? Are there comedians, at every open mic now reading poems, and is that the effect that, one of the things I've noticed is like when we started the KGB open mic, the comedians were like super enthusiastic about it, and now I feel like the reputation is we won't put a comedian on until like 2 a.m. I mean, shout out to Ben Callahan. He's been hilarious recently. I think he's hilarious, and he had a joke in some of his content about he's going to do the 2 a.m. set. I think that's cool. The problem with Manhattan is there isn't enough late night, So I think in a certain way that's kind of cool that after midnight or something, KGB Red Room can kind of turn into a comedy club and come work out your stuff, and it's kind of at the late hour. Come and just like play what you want to play. It's like I think comedy is kind of a strong corollary to like jazz stuff. Or obviously like the lyricism of something like hip hop, which I feel like is the modern kind of equivalent of jazz. Where it's like, there should be after hours kind of jam sessions and places for people to go to stretch out and try stuff. And I mean, you want to put people in front of as many people as you can, but I'm not trying to discourage anybody, but I do get disappointed when comedians tell the same jokes every single time. It's like, especially when they're not even that good to begin with. It's like, why not just try something different? I understand, because you get on stage and you feel like the audience isn't with you because they're not laughing, if you don't have a bunch of jokes preloaded, and a lot of people probably fall back on their A material when they start to bomb, or they'll throw something out that kind of works. But I don't think people should be afraid. I mean, granted, I don't get up there and do like totally off the cuff kind of like talk pieces at the open mic. I do read poems kind of exclusively because that's my opening monologue, but that's why I try to get out and do these other open mics. That's a space for me to go out and just kind of like really just free fall and go splat, and maybe something interesting will happen. Maybe there will be a spark, or like you'll learn something, or you don't even know. You are affecting the audience in some way. Maybe even if they're not laughing, maybe they're thinking. Maybe you're making them think. I would be more than happy to just do that. I just feel all this pressure to be funny because everybody else who gets up is funny. I mean, I don't really want to be funny. I don't want to have to be funny. I just want to talk, and then, funny things will occur. But yeah, I mean, I don't know. I'd like to be. I can only put on so many people who are going to bomb. And to be honest, like, I do find like a lot of the comedians have very interesting points of view and strong thought processes, and they're smart. And a lot of comedians are even doing interesting things on stage, formally. Those are the ones that generally I feel most comfortable putting on at a time when there's a lot of people there. I can't have a bunch of toxic, borderline racist or whatever comedians, or sexist or whatever, drag the show down. But who knows? Maybe we'll do a comedy night and we'll just put all the comedians up.
Yo, Lou, I got a movie idea.
And
Lou.
let them have their day. I don't want to. I wonder if I'm getting like. If I go to these comedy open mics, are they going to be like, oh, that's fucking Proctor. He fucking blacklisted all us, so let's treat him like shit. He's an asshole. Oh, you want to put me on at 12:30, dickhead? Okay, well, welcome to, the tables have turned now. Now it's my turn to put you on last. I mean, I want to give everybody a chance, and it's only fair. I mean, if people sign up the day of, which is often the case, it's not that easy for me to put them in early. And if you sign up on a Monday, there's already 30 to 40 people signed up. And so I don't want to tell people, like, look, there's no way you're going to go on before 11 or 12 o'clock, because that's not entirely true. I mean, I do try to rotate people in. I'm sympathetic to somebody who shows up the day of and wants to go on, and who wants to sign up in person, or who doesn't have a phone. Like, I can't just completely rule those people out. Like, I can't just put them on at 1 a.m. or something and make them wait, because a lot of times they are the people who showed up. And they showed up early because they want to sign up or this or that.
Oh, that is so fun.
And so, there has to be a blend of all the different considerations. The chronology of when people signed up. I don't know, giving people a chance, giving people, a bigger audience or something, and people who've proven themselves, who passed the test. So I didn't read a poem. I did talk about incest jokes, because a lot of comedians, somebody at the open mic, this one told some joke about how they wanted to have sex with their mom or something. It's like, Jesus fucking Christ. Like, does anybody else in the room feel like, I mean, that's one thing if that's, if you have to deal with that or whatever. But it's another thing to, like, go out in public and present it like it's some kind of like, hey, everybody's on board with this, right? You think this is funny, right? My mom walked in on me jacking off, and like, I was watching MILF porn. It's like, that's not what MILF means. It doesn't mean you want to fuck your own mom. Oh my God, there's a syringe right there. Sat right by this fucking syringe. MILF does not mean you want to fuck your own mom. It means somebody happens to be a mom who you want to fuck. I don't know if that guy knows the nuance of the term, but there's a surprising number of comedians that say shit like that or just say crazy shit. And maybe there should be a blind. Maybe somebody should let them know and give them a little bit of outside perspective. But I was just talking about, how all the porn is like incest porn and shit, or like it's your stepmom, or what's the My Family Pies, or what, it's like a lot of the fucking porn, on Pornhub at least, is like step sibling. It's like, what the fuck is going on? Do people actually, is this something that is normalized, and am I the person that's like the odd person out here? I don't think so. I think that I don't want to kink shame anybody, but the open mic lets all kind of crazy shit out, and I don't know. Okay, so I was watching this documentary that my neighbor Larry recommended called Parkway of Broken Dreams. And when he recommended it, I kind of took it the wrong way because it sounded like it was going to be a documentary about a bunch of losers with no talent because he's like, it's like what you're doing. He's like, it's exactly what you were doing at the open mic. It's called Parkway of Broken Dreams. And I'm like, great. So he thinks we're a bunch of broken dream, like, fucking losers. And like the open mic is just like, okay, this is the other thing this week. I'm the Rat King, right? I'm Rat Billings, the Rat King. I'm the king of the sewer rats, like from the Ninja Turtles, according to Philip and Ashley. I'm in a throuple with Philip and Ashley. I'm in a Julia, Jim, Willie and Phil situation with Philip and Ashley, and I'm the Rat King at the open mic. What the fuck was I talking about? There was something I was getting to before I started talking about the Rat King. Incest. I was talking about incest porn. And then I got off track somehow when I started talking about the Rat King, and that was a change of subjects. Fuck. This is the problem with the discontinuity of being high. I know I'll remember it. I know it'll come back to me. Hopefully this audio is fucking working. I don't even know if it is. This thing might not even be fucking plugged in for all I know. Maybe you can't hear anything. Is that why people got on and they got off real fast? I really hope this is goddamn working. There's no way to check it. There's just no way. What the fuck was I talking about? I'm sure it was something with the open mic, obviously. Fuck. I lost it. Well, anyway, I'm the Rat King. Well, I was thinking, I can't change subjects. I cannot change subjects that abruptly. I have to remember what I was talking about. See, I could never do this on stage. If you did this in front of an audience, the audience would just, like, completely turn on you. Or it would become like a conversation or something, in a way. That maybe you should embrace. Maybe that's part of it. They should just embrace the conversational aspect, the back and forth. The audience is kind of help you figure out what the fuck, like the audience would probably be like, oh, here's what you were talking about. I lost it. It's gone. But I mean, okay, so, the Parkway of Broken Dreams. That's what it was. I was talking about my fucking neighbor. So he recommends, so I'm thinking, I'm the Rat King at the open mic. But rats are survivors, and rats are a big part of New York, and, they're animals, they're alive, they're mammals. We shouldn't, it's kind of prejudiced, I think, to be anti-rat. It's kind of racist, maybe. It's not a bad thing to be king of the rats, the maniac leader of the Rat Pack, according to the Ninja Turtles action figure from Kenner. But I watched it, and it's actually, so it's about this, these open mics and record stores and this kind of bohemian culture that sprouted up in Las Vegas in this little kind of strip mall across from University of Las Vegas, University of Nevada, Las Vegas, UNLV. And this poet Gregory Crosby was in it, actually, who is like a Brooklyn poet. I've seen him at tons of the Brooklyn Poets events and different things. He was in it. I guess he was a part of this scene. So this was happening kind of like in the 80s and the 90s. This was like alt culture. And so there's all this VHS kind of camcorder footage of all these open mics. So it was actually like a positive thing for him to say. I took it the wrong way. I thought he was criticizing the show and was just saying, well, a bunch of loser wannabes who are never going to make it. But no, it's about a culture. You know, it's actually about a culture that kind of sprouts up in this situation where there was, you know, these coffee houses where people could, it's kind of like a slacker era kind of milieu. You know, at Ohio State, there was the Union, there was Bernie's Bagels where we like to go. There was this place, Victorian's Midnight Cafe, where I used to do open mics there, like in high school and in college, every Wednesday night with, what was his name? Crazy Pete, Hillbillies on Acid was his claim to fame. He had this song called Hillbillies on Acid. My friend Tommy and I would go to open mic at Victorian's Midnight Cafe and play awful cover songs, sounding like shit. I was too scared to do any kind of like singing, really. I just played like rhythm guitar, kind of stood in the back. I was nervous. But you know, the 90s before the internet, that's one of the things they talk about in the documentary at the end. This kind of cyber cafe comes in, which is like a little bit of a different vibe, kind of changes things. But I'll take a cyber cafe even now. I mean, now it's just like you can't even, those kind of spaces, those kind of 90s, there was like a sleepiness. There was a different sense of time. This was something I wanted to talk about just in general in the live stream, is like management and how our culture has just become so managed. Because of computers, because of the organizational powers and the way that like it expands the ability for things like venture capitalists and these kind of like non-locational, just kind of like liquidity investment kind of businesses have kind of taken over everything. And the way that the cities have changed, the way these bohemian spaces have been changed, and the feel, right? In Columbus, it's the Short North. There used to be a gay bookstore called An Open Book near the corner of High and Buttles, and there was a coffee shop right next door that was like a funky, you know, it smelled like BO, and it was like the bohemian. You'd go in there, people were reading, people were just hanging out, drinking cappuccinos and shit like they're on fucking Friends or whatever, which was sort of like, you know, a leftover from like 60s beatnik coffee house, drinking espresso, playing chess, having conversations. This is what Slacker's about. In Grandview Heights, the town where I'm from, there was a place called Stoff's, right on, you know, which was sort of like a Starbucks. It was like probably contemporaneous with Starbucks, with what was going on with Starbucks in Seattle. It kind of has the feel, I probably imagine, of like the original Starbucks location. Well, I've never been to the original Starbucks location, but it's like a coffee house before the Starbucksification of every coffee house. And it has this kind of bohemian like BO. You get cheesecake, you get like a, you know, espresso with whipped cream on it. We used to have chess club there. People just hang out there, you know, working in notebooks, studying. There were a lot of hot girls that would, you know, be studying to be nurses or whatever, or for law school, or, you know, they'd get a cappuccino or whatever. Not really a lot of laptops at that time. You know, I wouldn't hang out there that much, but there was that, you know, before the internet became kind of like the counterculture meeting space and everybody's kind of just like modem or whatever became their town square, like, there were still these kind of local, but I guess they had them everywhere, you know, and that's kind of what this documentary is about. And it's wild, you know, you see kids moshing or doing kind of crazy, like trippy kind of dancing and stuff, just like a really group. And it does kind of feel like the KGB thing where there's just all these human beings in a room that want to hear poetry. They talk in this documentary. They talk about people hang out for hours and hours and hours at these open mics because they just want to hear poetry. They want to listen to poetry. I think poetry is underestimated in our capitalist society because it can't be commercialized like stand-up comedy. You don't really victimize people. You don't victimize the audience with poetry like you do with music or comedy, where you're subjugating them and you're supposedly making them feel good and pleasing them, but you're also subordinating them to your attention and your ego. Whereas like with open mics, there's a cross transaction, there's a trading, there's a group sharing and a communal cultural petri dish. There's like a funky, mossy, bacterial kind of growth that happens. People form relationships. It's like a coral reef. They go do their own things. It becomes colorful. They make drawings. Artists come to the open mic. They draw. So it's inspiring people's creativity. They're walking away with works of art they've made at the open mic. Beautiful pieces. Shout out to Amy Tidwell, Jordan Galland, a couple, people who have shared beautiful drawings through, like Instagram is a great place, or the internet is a great place for outreach and a great gathering space like this, for instance. No one's watching, but gathering it in person is so important, and we can't just have so the documentary, of course, what happens is they build some kind of like student union across the street, and the street is this big 8-lane fucking pretty normal for like a university town. It's like High Street or something, just like some kind of big badass, people are going 35, 40 miles per hour through there. So that just killed all this whole coffee house kind of like alternative bohemian group. People with energy, young people want to be near music, near excitement, near shows, putting a show on, getting up in front of people, reading your poetry, painting, doing live painting, doing live, all forms of art can come to the gathering place, to the crossroads, and share and present themselves. Mimes, dancers, musicians, comedians, what have you, whatever you do, guest lecturers. And now, with Ohio State campus, right, they bulldozed the old Union, they built a new one, which, there's all these corporate tie-ins. They bulldozed Bernie's Bagels, the apartment building it was in, and they built, sort of like a pseudo facsimile of the kind of like faux Victorian or whatever, I think it's like apartment building that was there, and it's not funky. Now it's Papa John's Pizza, there's an Amazon store, it's all corporate, there's a Target, everything that was on High Street, the strip that was like where bands played. Buckeye Donuts is still there, but its facade is also this kind of like stucco, modern. They've changed with the times, good for them, but it doesn't have quite the same funky BO, outsider, hangout, 24/7 kind of weirdo diner. Buckeye Donuts was really like that place in Taxi Driver where Travis is hanging out with the other cab drivers, Peter Boyle and Harry Northup. But it was also like a bohemian cafe. It was like a Viennese or a Turkish place to get caffeine and just sit. And Zachary Allen Starkey is there reading T.S. Eliot, and he's a fixture. And just generally kind of interesting street people hustling, people with style, people making it on their own kind of like panache. Poets, weirdos coming in to get donuts. It's a place you can just hang out. We used to go there after our gigs. We'd play at Ruby Tuesdays or Bernie's or whatever. That was our after gig ritual. We go to Buckeye Donuts, sit at the counter, and rehash it, come down, kind of deflate after the energy, The bar closed at 2 a.m., but Buckeye Donuts is still open. Drive over, and now it's all, you know, Mark Pie or what is it, Panda Express. It's all corporate chains. You know, they sold all the contracts to mall culture and suburban kind of like brand, big corporate. So like all of that funky energy now is kind of at Cafe Kerouac. You know, there's still places. Larry's is gone. Larry's was right in there, but like there has been, like in the kind of post 9/11 digitalization of every fucking thing, everything going into spreadsheets, everything going into data management, everything going to Zillow or fucking Craigslist even, or you know, Facebook Marketplace or Compass Realty, or I don't even know what commercial realty fucking apps are, but like those spaces have all been evacuated, or a lot of them have been bulldozed, gone out of business. I mean, the places here are sort of hanging on their reputations and their value kind of as tourist attractions. You know, the East Village used to have Oast Cafe, Life Cafe, Cafe Pick Me Up, Jaffa Cafe. All those places are gone. Now they're just kind of these frozen yogurt places. You know, the corporate slaves, the people who are bought out by finance and tech, they love dairy. They love ice cream, and they love frozen yogurt. If a frozen yogurt or an ice cream place comes to your neighborhood, you are fucked. It's over. It's only a matter of time before the apartments cost $3,000 a month. But it's weird because the bohemian reputation of these places is part of their commercialization. I mean, what are we supposed to do, right? My life has been this pathetic kind of trying to like re-entry some kind of Oedipal complex with, you know, the Gaslight Cafe or something. Trying to go to fucking Greenwich Village Comedy Club. You know, the idea being like maybe the karma or the spirit matter is still there. Maybe these places, maybe this is the modern equivalent. You know, maybe maybe the comedians are the poets. I mean, that's what I wanted to tell Eric Walsh, is like his jokes are poetry. You know, I think in order to be a really good comedian in that manner, where like everything is perfectly sculpted and timed, like that is like poetry, where like every word has to be exactly this way, and it's all about pacing, and those breaks between the jokes are almost like stanza breaks. In a certain way, it's almost, you know, they're and I mean, so it's like I definitely think there are strong ties. This is part of what I'm trying to explore with my whole project, and especially with the KGB open mic being kind of the prime laboratory for that. But also, like, you know, performing at places like Ed's House, or you know, the Matthew Silver shows that he's invited me to be on, or with System Lord, or various open mics around town in all their different capacities and kind of like invitations and whatnot. You know, you try different things and you explore different. God, this guy sat right in front of my fucking view of everything. Son of a bitch. And all you see is that building. Okay, whatever. You know, people manage their own personalities. The management, there's just over management. You know, in this Ron Sylvian book, one of the quotes was, "The task of management is surveillance." You know, management is there to watch what you're doing and say, "Don't do that. You go back to work. Do this. You're disobeying. That's wrong." And we're being taught to manage our own personalities and our own behavior with these fucking antidepressants and shit. Not to be, you know, some kind of crazy anti-medical person, but like. One of the comedians, their joke was about when you take antidepressants, you can't come. I'm like, that is reason enough to not do it. Like, I don't care what the fuck That's, I mean, I suppose that's sort of like taking birth control and losing your period or something. Maybe I would just stop. I don't know. I mean, not to, I'm not trying to give medical advice. YouTube, scanners, surveillance. Speaking of management, and I'm managing my own, surveillance. Something's going on over there. Is that a graduation thing? And I think these antidepressants and just people's behavior, I don't know. I mean, to be honest though, I don't hear people talking about like social awkwardness as much as I used to. I feel like that was one of the hallmarks of my generation. It's like their obsession with being socially awkward. And like all the comedy was like Michael Cera, like he's so like impotently socially awkward. It's like adorable. And like people just felt nervous about like, I don't know. I felt like that was like a cultural kind of norm or like zeitgeist or like permission. We were made to feel inadequate or nervous about our personalities or not good enough. And so there was a lot of like self-imposed social awkwardness. Or I don't know, like now, I guess I'm bringing this up because like now when I have conversations with people, like granted this is because I'm like super high like almost my entire life, but like I do feel like socially awkward. I feel like I can barely even get into a fucking conversation before people want to leave, because I'm just like so goddamn weird and my energy is so like high and vibrating and I have stand-up comedian energy. That's something I should talk about. That's one of the reasons why I'm doing this stand-up comedy. I should talk about that. But it does feel like Gen Z is not as socially awkward. I don't hear people talking about, Gen Z seems confident. And they seem like they're out in the world meeting and facing things head on. Whereas like millennials felt like they hid out in some kind of office Steve Carell DVD, Jim and Pam, like I'm so awkward. I'm an awkward turtle. I'm the awkward turtle or whatever the fuck that was. What was the other thing? There was something I just mentioned that I wanted to talk about. Oh yeah, so one of the things about the open mic that's amazing is everybody has a different experience. It's like kaleidoscopic in that way. And so even weeks where like it can be an off week or like I was kind of not great this week because I wasn't high because this weed I bought was garbage. And so I was feeling very nervous. And then Larry, I was just feeling very self-conscious about the shit Larry had said about how I was too over the top and how we reminded him of the Parkway of Broken Dreams, which I just heard that and it was like, he thinks we're just all garbage, which was not the case. What he was saying is we have this kind of inspiring culture that's happening and like, this is kind of cool. And, these things maybe have a lifespan, but, enjoy it while it lasts and let's get the most out of it. And, let's make friends and just be together and do incredible things, And so one of the things, I didn't, but there were a lot of people that like it was their first time ever performing. Maybe they had a great time. It wasn't my best opening or anything, but it wasn't terrible. We got it done. We did it. We got the job done. We got everybody up. It was a good and it was so at one point late in the show, one of the things I'm noticing, I don't recognize everybody. I should be better about researching people in advance and getting to know their work and their social media profile and things like that. But a lot of people, especially if it's their first time, I don't know who they are, what they look like, or a lot of people who are poets I think are comedians and vice versa. And sometimes I'll introduce people, this person's going to read and then they'll want to play music. And so, I can't keep track of everybody that well. But one of the things I notice is I'll look out in the crowd and like people do have if somebody's been sitting waiting for hours and hours, you can kind of tell like that's probably a person that wants to go up or signed up and I don't know who they are. And they signed up late or I haven't called their name because I wasn't sure if they were here or what. But like, then at that, usually around like midnight or something, I'll sort of comb the audience to see, if there's anybody there. I should do it earlier. I should be better about this, but like to see if there's anybody there that like, signed up and I just sort of like lost track of them or don't recognize them. And so I approached this woman in the back of, area by the bar, who I don't know. She had been there for a while, and so I just thought she probably signed up, and I don't know who she is, and I feel bad about that because, I want to get her up, and so I said, hi, like, did you sign up? Do I know you? And she's like, no, but I'm a performer and this and that. And she's like, she starts telling me she does the voice of Surrey and all this shit. And I think she works for a tech company and makes money. And she's like a professional voice actor and this and that. And she does all these impersonations. And so I'm like, oh, great, we'll definitely get you up. This will be awesome. Because she was a little bit apprehensive, or she was nervous, I think. Much like myself, she was friends with Ben, the bartender, and so she had come because he's going on vacation for a couple months, so she had come to say goodbye. And so that's why she's his roommate. I probably shouldn't involve this personal information, but sorry. I didn't mention any names but the recurring character of the great bartender. Anyway, so I'm like, yeah, this will be, there's nothing to be afraid of. With the KGB open mic, I feel comfortable pretty much there. And so I want the performers to feel comfortable, even though it can be intimidating because there's a lot of people and, you might not be familiar. And I definitely feel that way anytime I'm going to any new open mic. Like this one today, I felt like, okay, is this my vibe? Are these people going to dig what I'm doing? Like, can I try what I want to try? Like, I should face like these picnic rooms or something. How's that? That's kind of cool, right? And so she went up, she did great. She did all these impressions, they were great. Like, you can tell she's like a natural. And so we started talking afterwards, and like, she had just moved from LA. She was in this guy, Tom Kenny, who is SpongeBob SquarePants. He is SpongeBob SquarePants. But what I know him mostly from is Mr. Show. He's one of the funniest kind of supporting members of the cast of Mr. Show. And he's hilarious, like Mr. Show was a huge thing for my brother, and like, it's one of the funniest fucking, things that's ever been on TV. Mr. Show is phenomenal. I love Mr. Show. It's poetry. It's an example of comedy as poetry, I would say. The language, there's a lot of care that went into the language. It's almost like Joycean. I know Bob Odenkirk is a James Joyce fan. And David Cross's girlfriend is Amber Tamblyn, who's a poet. And he played Allen Ginsberg in the Bob Dylan movie. But I digress. These are comedy poetry corollaries. Judd Apatow, call me. Judd Apatow, I need a deal. Call me. Gary is communicating. We need to do lunch. I need to be the next Chris Gethard. The KGB I need to be Chris Gethard. And, what was I just talking about? So she was in Tom Kenny's band. She was in SpongeBob SquarePants' band. And she's like, the first thing she says, she's like, when I met you, you reminded me of Tom. You reminded me of Tom Kenny. And she's like, you have that retro kind of energy. And she's like, you have stand-up comedy energy, is what she said. You have stand-up comedian energy. And this is like something I'm coming to terms with, I think, in my own life. Is like, I feel like I probably do have, I have always had stand-up comedy energy. And I'm going to profit and privatize it and profit off of it and try to monetize it. That's my whole, or I don't know, just explore it, try to make use of it. My poetry has always been kind of like an obscure, avoidant kind of form of comedy, stand-up comedy. But she thanked me for coming out in the crowd and for asking her if she wanted to perform, because she's like, how did you know? How did you know that I wanted to try this? She had, I don't know if she had ever done stand-up comedy. It was something that, like myself, she probably feels like she does all these impressions and shit. That's another thing we have in common. We're hack impressionists. I don't want to do impressions because it's hack. It's a hack move. But maybe I'll sign off. I don't know what time it is, or if my battery's dead, or if this audio is even working. But I've had a blast. So yeah, there's a few things I will talk about before I wrap up, but kind of wrapping up here after an hour. I'm out in public. I think it's probably 5:45 or so, getting to 6. The sun is going down, so it may be later than that. Do I have a clock of any kind? I feel like it starts at like 7. So I'm working on a bunch of impressions that nobody cares about that I'll do next Wednesday. My experimental stand-up comedy career continues. It's just like the show Crashing with Pete Holmes, which is sort of a Lives of the Poets. It's all about being a spoken word artist on McDougal Street at the Grizzly Pear, which was the Cafe Rienzi, which the Boston Comedy Club is above the Zinc Bar, which is where the Segway series was for a long time. And it's all a cycle. It's all a circle. That's what Jerry teaches us. I will survive. It's 420 open mic next week. Toke 'em if you got 'em. Come on out. There's no smoking in the bar. I want to make that clear. Absolutely no smoking in the bar. It's not even funny to joke about it because I don't want to piss off the managers. Yeah, I don't know. Don't overmanage your personality. We're trying to get wild. I think Gen Z wants to be wild. You have to let the energy out. It took me a long time to learn that. I think my 20s, I did hold a lot of things back. I didn't know what to do with my talents. I didn't figure out that I can just... even this comedy space, it's like people don't necessarily welcome the idea that you're just getting up on stage and just, trying to figure the fuck out what you're doing as you go. But everything is so overmanaged. That's why an apartment costs, $5,000 a month. Everything's cashless. I'm riding the Omni on the train, just swiping my credit card, trusting. I don't know how much they're charging me. I don't know if they're only charging me once or... Jesus take the wheel. This has been a Jesus take the wheel time in my life. I didn't even mention Kuzu Daddy. Yeah, so she thanked me for. So, even though the night, certain people might look at it like, oh, it wasn't the best night, or the energy was weird, or like Philip didn't have a great time. To be honest, all the points that he raised, this is something I should talk about, were completely valid, and it's something that I do think about, and something that is markedly different about the comedy world and the poetry world, and that's one reason why it's hard to get them to coexist in the same room, is comedians, what their idea of a space is a lot different. They don't even care about that. And so, Philip felt, and a few other people, not a few, but another person felt that there was some homophobic vibe to some of the people that were in the audience, or some things were said. And, I do want to make it a safe space, and I don't want to be appropriative or disingenuous about it being it's not a queer space. No one is excluded, and I think it is, like I said, I don't want to be appropriative of that, but it is a queer space to some degree, because, we definitely, that's important, to have that that artistry and that content, and to welcome and to make it a safe space for those voices, and to even be expressly concerned with that, is a good thing, I think. The comedians should be less homophobic. It's not cool to say, the F word or whatever. Not that anybody said that on stage, but I've heard people say it here and there outside of, and like, it's just not I don't think that's a good cultural norm to bring back. It's not good. That is homophobic and it's not welcome, and like, so, but trying to get these worlds to coexist, like, you have to be somewhat sympathetic to the comedians as well. Like, you can't just make them feel like, or, like, okay, so it was a locus of suffering, and, certain people didn't have a great time, and it's the Red Room, and it's the Black Lodge, and it's that curtain, and it's kind of a windowless box, although there is a window and there is a view now, so there will be some daylight shed on the issue, and that'll be kind of nice. It'll be like a patio or something. I'm going to sign off pretty soon. I'm live from Washington Square, but I've got to go to work. They're doing a Brecht play. So the political is definitely with us, and we're thinking about that, and we're concerned with that. And, I am definitely thinking more about, like, what it means, what queerness is, and how that is reflected or a part of everything that I'm a part of and the things that I do. It's good that these things are being brought to my attention, and I want to be sympathetic, and I want people to feel safe. And but it's also like the open mic is like a little country. It's like a little democracy, and there's wing nuts, and like, that's part of having an open mic, I think, to some degree. Is like, why is it that every time I do this, people start watching an hour after I start doing it, or they start watching when I'm ready to be done? Not to complain. I don't want to be. I'm the Andy Rooney of Millennial Set. I'm ready to be the Andy Rooney. Can we reboot 60 Minutes? I'll be the Andy Rooney of the Neo 60 Minutes. New 60 Minutes. NU 60 Minutes. I guess they did 120 minutes. Maybe we'll do 240 minutes. We'll do multiples or something. We'll double it. We'll double it every time. But it's like I said, it's a kaleidoscope. People have different experiences, so it's all worth doing. I mean, I think that's part of the lesson is, like, if you're doing shows, if you're going to put a show on every week, there's going to be hills and valleys. There's going to be nights where you're tired, or, like, maybe, and then there's nights where things just take off and you don't even know why. There's nights that are, to be honest, a lot of the nights where because I am self-conscious about it, and I'm constantly evaluating in my head, is this a good show? Is this going to be a great show? Are people going to walk? Is this memorable? A lot of the nights where I've thought, like, I'm kind of off, or this isn't so great. Like on Monday, I was drinking. I was having my trademark vodka sodas, which, because I wasn't high, I slugged back a few of them. Now that people signed off. See, I shouldn't have complained about it. I lost my audience because I complained about it. But I'm going to sign off anyway after I get to these important points. So my experience, but it's like, you're committed to doing it, and you just have to do it. I mean, think about how many fucking shows the Grateful Dead played. It's almost like baseball games or something, Like, if you want to be one of the great players, you want to play in a shitload of games. You want to play as many seasons as you can. You want to play 4,000 games or 3,000 games, or I don't know what's the record. I don't know. But, the Grateful Dead played 3,000 shows or something. It's like, Bob is like that too. He's somewhat hit or miss. It doesn't always work, but it usually does, and when he does, it's magic. And so, like, people are very self-conscious, and we are in, like, a society that's full of anxiety and self-doubt, and especially at an open mic, people are nervous, and it is a locus of nervous energy and, like, fear, and when am I going to get to go up, and I'm mad at this guy, and this fucking asshole needs to put me up. And I feel that way when I go to open mics, I understand. It's like we can only put up one person at a time, you know? I kind of want to do a multiple. We'll just put everybody up at once and we'll just all jam it out and everybody will all go at once. But people do it. A lot of people have different, there's good within the bad. Even though it wasn't bad, you know, we shouldn't be training ourselves to feel bad. You know, we should be training ourselves to think, oh, I bombed, or that sucked, or I did a shitty job. It's like the fact that you're even getting up in front of 50 people is completely insane. Most people, in reading poetry, most people would be terrified to do something so vulnerable and personal and expressive and putting yourself out there. And so that is a tremendous victory in and of itself. And it's all a learning experience. We're all journeyers on the same path across the galaxies, and this is part of the journey. Whether you're a master, whether you're Bob Dylan, whether you're Jerry Garcia, whether you're Eileen Miles, whether you're Ann Waldman, or whether you're me, you know, or whether you're a person it's the first open mic they've ever done. It's like we're all practicing the same thing. We're all equal. We're all valid, and our practice is valid, and it's a part of our, you know, with poetry, it can't be commercialized because it's more about you writing it. It's not about buy my book. It's about you write your own poetry and you get up on stage and you share it. That is your bird song. And we are animals. We need to sing. We need to verbalize. We need to metabolize our experience, and we need to get on a goddamn branch and blah, 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 blah. Look at me. Aren't I so great? I am a bird. I want to be a bird. I want to be a bird. I want to be a bird. He's right. He's right, goddammit. And the open mic is your branch. So come on out and sing. And, you know, people want to be seen. That's good. You know, this is come out, see and be seen, meet each other, you know, make friends. We need to put out publications. There needs to be paper. There needs to be print, archive. I do the videos, but there needs to be magazines. That's the next step. People need to make magazines with each other in it and bring them to the open mic and exchange them. But, you know, for the comedian voiceover artist who told me that I have Tom Kenny energy, for her to get up on and do stand-up comedy for the first time on stage, for her that night was a win. Or, you know, there were other people, it was the first open mic they'd ever been on, and, you know, I wanted to make it good for them. For them, it was a special experience and a great night, and they'll probably remember it. You know, they'll probably remember it their whole fucking life. You know, performing in Manhattan to 50 people is nothing to shake a stick at. It's kind of an exciting thing to do, you know, to even get that far. You know, it's you know, for some people it's their first step on the path to showbiz greatness or poetry greatness or immortality or whatever it's going to be. Their own practice, their own open mic, their own life as a committed artist and with a public presence and a community. You know, the community is really the key and the point and the heart. Like building community and getting people forming relationships, and they generate work, they generate creative energy and product and publication and Mimeo and printout and online and video and their own readings, their own series, their own rooftops, their own works, their confidence in themselves as artists and identities. You know, when people have a voice, they have an identity. And, you know, if they have a public voice and people are aware of their work and following their work, that's important to us as artists, and it can be helpful, you know, and it can help us grow. I hope people are growing. I think they are. You know, I want people to feel like they're getting better at poetry. That's one reason why I do the book of the day thing, because I do want to teach people about poetry, maybe things they don't know, expose them to things they may not be aware of. And it's a poetry community college, and I am an amateur professor doing my amateur medical experiments. No, I'm just trying to teach people about the things that the autocorrect MFA programs are not teaching them. The real stuff that's alive, the real outsider stuff, the stuff that the CIA, PSYOP, MFA programs don't want you to know about. They definitely have an agenda. They definitely have a political propaganda machine emphasis to them. And so, I did drop the ball on Monday because my energy wasn't I was nervous, I was self-conscious, I was afraid. And so, as kind of the lightning rod who has to, the open mic as lightning rod, the mic stand as lightning rod, as the person who opens the show and kind of broadcasts, I'm trying to broadcast a healing golden light that's inspiring and generative to everyone who attends and gets them in their best place. And just that is my prime thing on stage, my energy. And by sending out good energy, I'm trying to make as many people as I can feel good. Being a healer, right? I was talking to my dad and Susan on Easter, or the day after Easter, and she's been doing these she has this infrared spa, right, where they do massages and infrared sauna, and she does this thing called hippie hut or something, where they have, it's just about healing people. It's all about healing people with injuries, people with muscle, whatever, aches, whatever. Massage is about healing people. And so, as performers, I do think ultimately that's sort of maybe the highest thing you can do, is heal people by sending out good energy, maybe giving them food for thought, words of wisdom, by making them laugh. Laughter is a good, positive goal. Look at Ram Dass in Wavy Gravy, right? My hero, Wavy Gravy. But Ram Dass, his whole fucking thing is just laughing at everything. People think he's like the wisest Buddha of the whole fucking continent. It's like, all he does is laugh. That's not that hard. I laugh at everything. People think I'm the Joker. I think I'm mentally unsound. Why is this guy laughing? He's nervous. It's nervous laughter. So we'll try to do better the next time. We'll try to do better next week. Thank you for watching. This has been an abbreviated 77777. Live from Washington Square Park. Live stream. Come to Easy Paradise 420 Monday. Smoketacular. You'll get a contact high. I do believe in the contact high. I think by being high on stage and feeling golden energy and transmitting golden energy from the Godhead through the antenna of, I think our bodies are kind of like, I meant to talk about how the solar bank and how aliens harvest our suffering on stage. I forgot to mention that. Okay, I'm down to 20% power, so I should probably sign off. Oh God, I'm gonna get banned from YouTube for that. Oh well. I don't even know that the audio works on this. I did have some people watching for a while, so it may have worked. I'm just getting rolling, 78 minutes in, but thank you for watching. It's a beautiful day here in the park. Hopefully you're enjoying the outdoors. God, is there anything else I have to mention? Come to the Red Room. It's not just a locus of suffering. It's a dream revelation. The message comes to us in the Black Lodge. You have to go into the kind of somnambulist, automatic writing state to find out what you really think. To find out what the real message is. You have to put yourself into a trance. That's ultimately what we're talking about here. Comedians, poets, musicians, they're all just different forms of putting the audience into a trance. And so by getting up and doing comedy, I think, or by talking for 78 minutes, 79 minutes, maybe I'll do 80 minutes. It's like a meditation. You deepen into it as the time goes on. 20 minutes in, 40 minutes in, 60, as you keep talking, you start feeling less self-conscious. You start to actually be able to go, at least that's the goal. And you sink in, and your brain waves, like when you're doing a meditation, That's the point of meditation. Is the idea you're centering, you're calming your frequency, you're getting it into a trance-like state with your mantra or your guided meditation or whatever you are using. Well, thank you for watching. We'll try to do better this week and come to the 420 show. It's a kaleidoscope. There's good and the bad. You just keep trucking, keep on trucking. And this has been a dream of mine. Doing a 5-hour show every week in Manhattan once a week is a life dream come true. And there's no guest I'd rather have on it than you. And I just, I want stage time so I can learn how to do this on stage. At the open mic, I get these little bits and pieces of time, but I want comedians to do well there, and I want them to feel comfortable. I'm like Mr. Rogers. I'm putting my shoes back on at the end of the show. Oh, I probably should turn off. Okay, well, thank you, neighbors. Thank you for watching. If you have a good time, won't you be my... I'm going to have some more... Oh, this is the best snack in the world, by the way. I probably shouldn't advertise this, but these fucking Drizzlicious birthday cake bites are literally... There's only 90 calories per 21 pieces, and it's literally the dankest shit I've ever eaten. So that's my product placement, my free product placement. My volunteer product placement for the day. All right. Well, I do want to say to Ben Callahan, I think quitting comedy is like a hilarious bit. It's probably the funniest bit. I think he's on fire. He's on a roll with this quitting comedy thing. It's like the funniest bit I've seen yet from Ben Callahan. It's hilarious. So I hope he'll. This is the art. This is the path. This is the way. You just keep walking every day. One foot in front of the other. Baby steps. And, if you're doing it sober, more power to you, because that's not easy. So I understand it can be hard, especially when you've got an active mind and, everything we've been through in the past few years, we are recalibrating. I think that's one reason why it's important to do these in-person things. Being in person, having face-to-face conversations, trying to reconnect, trying to make new friends, trying to form a scene on the boulevard of broken dreams. We have each other. That's what it's really about. It's not about being famous or successful. It's about a community, and it's about having each other, an artistic family. And that's what we have, and I want to grow that out as much as we can. I don't necessarily want it to become a completely insular thing where it's the same people. I want there to be branches and branches and branches of new people coming in, people from all over the world, people, from all over New York City coming in and bringing the news. So, more poetry, more good times. The more you do it, the more comfortable you get. The more you feel at home. Getting to know the other people. Talking to the other comedians, that's a big part of it. Letting, they can give you feedback. They can tell you what, they like this or that. They can see what you're doing. And you find they might have liked things that you didn't know they liked,